Microphone's not on. Hello. Good morning, afternoon, or evening. Hello, MouseHunt. Welcome to Feedback Friday. Today is November 25, 2022. My name's Dave. Hello to everybody in the chat. I hope you're all doing well today. Looks like we have a few dozen hunters hanging out at the moment. Good morning, afternoon, or evening, everybody. And JC was in the chat before the stream started asking about the MouseHunt songs there. I did put a link to it. It's on Spotify if you want. Hello, Mac Camel. Hello to you. Ryan, hi from Singapore. Excited for the great winter hunt. Glad to hear it. I'm excited too. You know, I've been testing it, playing it, and been having a whole lot of fun. So I think it's turned out pretty darn well. The whole team's done a fantastic job. You know, I think this is one project where almost everybody on the team touched it at least in some little way. So it was a huge team effort. And it's so far it's come out very well. I'm having a lot of fun playing it. Good morning to you, Diamond. Tarako morning. Yoshira, hello to you. KDM, nice to see you. Eric, John, Daniel. Good midnight. Daniel, I guess the day is just changing over for you. Kaim, hello, morning to you as well. Joshua, good morning. Hope you had a good Thanksgiving. Well, that was our neighbors to the south here in the United States had their Thanksgiving just yesterday. So if you're from the States, hey, hope you had a good Thanksgiving holiday as well. Ours is a little earlier in the year, and a little colder climate, the harvest a little bit earlier in Canada than most parts of the States. So we celebrate our Thanksgiving in October to celebrate the harvest. Very tied to the weather. James, hello to you. Jason, morning to you as well. Math Awakening, hello. Well, before we dive into Winter Hunt, actually, I wanted to give a little heads up on some updates coming next week as well. Scribdev popping in the chat. Hello, he says hello to you as well, Scrib. Hope you're doing well today. But I have a few, which way am I pointing here? Here we go. A few updates coming next week, actually. 3 days in a row, and we'll be doing some sort of update happening. So it'll be a busy week. Monday, the Advent calendar is going to appear on camp. Now, obviously, the first door can't be open to December 1st. But we like to get it up there ahead of time, just a little heads up, like, hey, you know, make sure you come back December 1st. That's when you can open up your first door. So the camp banner will appear. So that's about 48 hours before you'll be able to open it. A reminder, as always, the Nanian Day changes at midnight UTC. So at least where I'm sitting here, that happens to be 7 p.m. for me right now. So you could Google midnight UTC and see when that is in your time zone. Or, you know, it's the same time that the gift of the day resets. All that stuff happens. Basically, it's when the Nanian Day changes. And you know, if you've been around in the last Great Winter Hunt and the Advent calendar experience, it works in much the same way. Tuesday, and I'm hoping I'll give a little demo of this as well later. We spoke about this on previous Feedback Fridays. Hunter's Horn update is coming. We were getting a little bit of feedback, early impressions. Turned out great. Long overdue. That horn asset was created such a long time ago. I think Jacob was absolutely delighted to give it a fresh coat of paint. I gotta sound my horn. Am I doing everything right? Yes. All right. Sweet. So a little update to the Hunter's Horn. That will only affect browser, though, so it's not going to affect the mobile app. It just has a new look and animation, even some very small changes to how you travel as well. I can kind of give a sneak peek at that later. Tuesday, Smelly Sodium Base update. So something kind of we workshopped to add +1 salt level in the sand crypts when you catch a mouse using any type of salt charm. So you can get, with a super salt charm, it'll kind of stack on top of that. And just kind of based on player feedback, it was maybe a little bit too niche. It was very much so aimed at passive gameplay. You know, you're away traveling somewhere, but you still want to be in the sand crypts. You at least, you know, you're working on that King's Crown in the background without having to come back and swap out your charms. Or worse yet, you come back, you swap out your charm, and you fail to catch. And you're like, come on, I got to get going. So a little too niche. We're hoping this has kind of a wider audience to it now, where it is beneficial no matter where you are. This actually came up during design and playtesting, and we were a little bit worried. Well, it's kind of hard to figure out. I have a prestige base. Is it better just to capture mice more often, or is it better to fail mice more often but get extra salt? But after we kind of ran through everything, it's just universally better for most trap setups, where even if you're missing mice more often, you're still going to get that salt level up faster to the level that you want to get it to. So, you know, decided, hey, let's go for it there, and that'll be coming on Tuesday. A little increase to the Smelly sodium base. It'll be even extra salty. And finally, last but not least here, Wednesday, the Relic Hunter promotions will come to an end. So just a reminder, it's the last chance if you want to take advantage of the rare map dust, Gilded Scroll promos, all those things. Those kind of promotions are going to end on Wednesday. Sometime around the same time we usually update the game, maybe a little bit later than that. But hey, if you're looking to take advantage of those, do so before Wednesday. James liking the sound of the smelly sodium base buff. And it's something interesting too. We're kind of exploring where can we go with different reward spaces. Definitely as the game marches on year after year, it starts to be a lot of bases in the game. And if we kind of extrapolate this, okay, where would this be 10 years from now? Is there eventually going to be 500 bases, and every area and every phase of every area has a different base you should swap to? I don't know if that's quite where we want to go with things. So we're trying to think ahead a little bit of how can it maintain a lot of relevancy to players and kind of feel really fun and powerful to use, but at the same time just increasing this massive collection of bases. And then, hey, I never get to use my prestige base, or maybe your Empyrean Refactor base is your best base. Like, I earned this thing, I never use it because I always have these niche bases that I have to kind of look up to remember what they do. I spotted a typo in there. I may as well fix that. I'm missing a parentheses. I must have hit the underscore. We'll fix that up in the title. All right. Camel, will the new horn theme work with the old navigation style buttons? It should. Let me give a quick little test here. That's a mighty good question. Let me turn off the new style. Yes, indeed. Yeah, I remember I was testing that, so you gave me pause there. I'll turn those back off. There we go. But yes, it will work with the old style. So if you kind of, like the retro look, and we're doing our best to continue to support that for as long as we can. But eventually it may, much like the old camp layout, it's a band-aid to rip off. But we're doing the best we can. Matt, can you add Alchemist and Engineer technology so Hunter can choose one? See, that was one thing we're shied away from a little bit as well. There were kind of ideas of different, much like this, stealth mode. And different bases that kind of have some UI elements. Unfortunately, it's tricky for us to add buttons and switches to make bases do two different things. Even things like the queso pump trap, having a progress bar to show you how close it is to delivering your queso, the Golem Guardian trap, we have to kind of, there's some game engine limitations there that each one of those that we add kind of makes it a little bit harder to add new things down the road. So behind the scenes, we're doing a lot of kind of game engine work to help alleviate that. But at least for now, it's something that we don't like to take out of the back pocket too often. Our bases with a switch on them or something like that, that we're kind of very out of the ordinary. Tarku, you never use your monolith base now. Fair enough. There's a natural kind of progression and pacing of when you're in upgrades, things kind of get sunset. But something that you just earned, yesterday, and it's like, well, sweet, I just got this new base. But I already have these other 120 bases. That's, hyperbole. That's every base in the game. But all these other bases with special effects. It's kind of like, well, I earned this, but I don't think I'll ever use it because I got to be in an area that I don't have another type of thing. So anyway, it's food for thought. It's something we're going to be kind of continuing to mull over, even when we think about what Relic Hunter season is going to mean going forward. Whether season 11 means new bases, or maybe it's time to reimagine that, kind of push it into a new space. So we'll see where that goes. Catherine, so many bases, I do forget to use most of them. Absolutely. The more of something there is, the less special each one becomes, and kind of something we refer to as increasing cognitive load. Or if we can think about where charms ended up. Eventually, there were so many charms in the game. When you open up your inventory, like, can I get rid of some of these? I want to clean up and organize them. I can't remember where they come from, what they do, how hard it is to replace them if I use them. And then even just when you think about, okay, I'm going to go to this area, well, what are all the charms that you use there? What are they all called again? So, if you can get a lot done with very little, that's usually better than getting not a lot done, but using a lot of tools, if that makes any sense. I might be starting to ramble now. Back on the best example of a base we keep on reusing, even though we have the best base in the game, is the AI. The Adorned Empyrean Refactor base? No, you'll have to bear with me on some acronyms here. Sometimes it gets tough to pick them up on the fly. Jackie makes it better than best base instead of being useless. I think it's fine to have many bases. You stick one per region. Shouldn't get too out of hand. Yeah, but eventually we run out of that as well, right? If you stick to one per region, there's not too many regions in the game. So there's a scaling issue at hand, and we'll You know, often players talk about power creep, right? And there's a distinction between kind of often the interpretation of that is, hey, I have a piece of equipment, and then later on I earn another piece of equipment, and it's more powerful than that one. I'm slowly getting stronger. That's bad, right? But nobody complains they can go back to the meadow with, Sandstorm Monsterbot and just mop the floor with all the mice there. So it's more about pacing when it comes to those kind of linear upgrades, earning them at the right time after you've gotten kind of some use out of the last upgrade to help you earn the next one. That's kind of pacing issue because you're becoming stronger, but your opponent is becoming stronger at the same time. A tough reward space with these bases is that you're becoming stronger, but your opponents are not becoming any stronger. So that is power creep because you're just continually getting more and more powerful as time passes, but there's no greater challenges put forth in front of you to utilize that extra strength to overcome. And then that's where it kind of falls flat often. Potato, are there plans for base skins soonish? If you put the ish on there, yeah, I don't know what the soonish means, but that's something that's kind of on the back burner we're mulling over. We also want to kind of tidy up what some sort of cosmetic override system might look like so you can enjoy. You have a limited edition trap from years ago and you just like the way it looks, but the stats aren't all that great. A way to kind of use that as a cosmetic, because that's going to affect the design of how base skins would end up working. Catherine, you love your desert heater though. And that's what it comes down to. Not saying thou shall never make another base again with a special effect, but making sure there are times like, yes, that is a great idea and it's a good fit. Let's go for it. That's the right tool for the job. It's a base and you have it, and it's a new permanent ability you unlock because you own that piece of equipment. Whereas right now, it's a little bit forced, and I think I even said this last week. Often there's an event and we have to come up with a reward for it. That's backwards. It should work the other way around. Here's a really cool idea for a reward. What's an interesting way to earn that? And events put us in that kind of tough spot where you're painted in this corner. You just have to have something, and you might be like, oh, this is cool. That's not quite appropriate for the event, or like, that shouldn't be limited edition though. And so it can get very tough, and it'd be nice to have more tools at our disposal when it comes to that. The Attuned Energy Induction Base. There we go. Thank you, Yoshi. It's been a while since I've been in the Froma Rift, but that's a good example as well. Something kind of gives you a nice benefit, but was conceived kind of at the time that area was being put together, right? And then it's kind of put together with foresight that way. Whereas you come back to an old area that hasn't been touched for many years, and you just kind of go like, here you go. You're just 33% stronger now. Isn't always a great fit, especially in kind of the workshop space of limited edition rewards. Bronto, it's a good way to incentivize higher level players to come back to areas in case of maps of whatnot. Yeah, you can. That is kind of a nice feeling as well, where when you're sort of over leveled for the area, coming back and like, I can do it a little bit faster. It's just nice to have that with foresight in terms of pacing and everything as well. That was kind of another little sentiment building around the Relic Hunter season is by a long shot. Area-specific maps are the most popular one. And so maybe Relic Hunter maps need a little bit of extra life. They're really a tough spot to be in. Even asking, is it really that fun to feel forced to do a few maps that you don't really want to do just to collect some bases? Maybe there's a much more interesting space. That's something we'll be thinking over for the next half year or so. Yeah, John, there's times when you use the energy induction base and energy charms when back farming weak mice. Yeah, that's kind of something nice you can stockpile, especially if you're really focused on the Froma Rift. Still a great place for points. Great place to farm relics as well. Summit, we might be feature creeping here. The ability to combine 2 or 3 bases. We often try to find ways to achieve interesting outcomes with less complexity. There's a difference between complexity and something being complicated. And so usually we have to resist the urge. It's like a painter making doing an illustration. You have to know when to put the brush down, because if I just keep going, I'm going to ruin it, And so you have to resist the urge to keep adding more features, more complexity, more complicated little niche things. And I think, bases are getting to that point as well. We got to kind of take a step back and use it for the right tool, for the right job, without it becoming overwhelming. Maybe there's another space we can explore to kind of have powerful abilities that are a little easier to parse and manage and keep tabs on. Sasha, good. Anyway, Dave, good luck. Hope you can make this game better with every year. That's a hope as well. The whole team works hard on doing that. Platinum base, yeah, that has definitely been kind of canceled, at least until tournaments can someday get a overhaul. Potato has a suggestion for next year. Maybe the Relic Hunter maps could get something like a gilded coin related to it. There are a bunch of skins that are just rare drops now. Yeah, that would be good if they had their kind of an identity, you know, like this is where this thing comes from. But anyway, we have lots of time to kind of think about the next Relic Hunter season and the future of maps. Should shift gears a little bit into the Great Winter Hunt. And I shared this last week as well, but as a quick refresher, in case you didn't join us last week, the 2022 Great Winter Hunt Golems are back with a brand new adventure. So it's just reimagined Golems. The whole Golem part of it is remarkably similar. You send out Golems, they come back after 25 hunts, you get area-specific loot. But we really expanded this now with a new region. There's 3 areas in this region: Cinnamon Hill, Golem Workshop, Ice Fortress. It's all meant to try to give you more control. I won't say try to. It does give you more control over which golem parts you're getting. So, hey, maybe you just have 10 heads, 0 torsos, and 80 limbs. Before you had to smash those. That's quite the loot imbalance there. You had to smash them and craft the torsos. Now there's kind of different things you can do to try to even that out. Or I want more of this because that's what I'm short on. New ways to upgrade golems this year. Upgrading your golems is probably faster than it's ever has been before because there's a new way to go about doing it. New source of animated snow. That's one of the kind of new ways you're empowered to balance out your drops without having to sacrifice your parts. And new way to find rewards as well. But one thing I wanted to get into a little bit, we touched on it last Friday, and it was quite beneficial, was just kind of soundboarding some of these area rewards for golems. I've kind of set up a test environment where I have almost basically unlimited golem parts. So I can just keep, and bells. So I can just send them out, claim them instantly, and just kind of share what some of the area specific rewards are. We've been keeping a huge notepad here as well of kind of tweaks just as we notice different player comments, suggestions, feedback that resonate with us, the team as they play test as well. Especially, different people on the team are more interested in different areas than others, so they often have poignant feedback on different sorts of locations. I've even got that notepad open up as well, so I can kind of take notes a little bit as we go. But just the goal of it to kind of take a temperature check, see if there's any kind of, are we thinking the same thing right now? Or are we way off base? So let me see if I can get this going here. Yes, indeed. And I've got the big giant disclaimer. In fact, I'll already warn you that the rewards that I'm going to demo here have already changed this week as we've been doing playtesting. Probably most obvious, if we send one to the table of contents before the hat would come back with Nobel prizes, that will be no more, but it's still in this test environment. That doesn't have that change. We're hoping to find a space where we could make that work, but ultimately kind of prizes and golems just didn't work out. It would either be way too many prizes for someone just starting the area or just not enough for somebody who's at the end of the area. So it was very hard to find a nice middle ground there. Daniel asking about the winter charm and the let it snow charm. Yeah, it's a good question, actually. We just finished workshopping that this week. You're going to be able to smash them into pecan cheese. So there's kind of nothing that works the way that they did last year. The Snow Golem Architect now, you do not need a charm to attract the Snow Golem Architect. And it does have a little bit better golem part drops than some other mice. You do not need a special charm anymore to get the Snowflake mouse. She has very good drops as well. You just don't need a charm at all. And there's really nothing like those charms in this version of the Great Winter Hunt. So you're going to be able to smash them. Let it snow into glazed and winter charms into regular pecan cheese. Bronto, you're not speaking for everyone, but you feel consistent. I feel like consistently useful base for low areas reward, more interesting than Lucky Loot style for high area reward. Yeah, it's something we're kind of going to let simmer a little bit. Potato, will dedicated people still be able to just pick up a school of sharks with just golems? I mean, you need to... No, actually, no. That was kind of a takeaway where we're wondering, kind of this comes up in conversation around the Winter Hunt, that the School of Sharks should perhaps have the adventure requirement, and I don't believe it does. So that's something that may make its appearance. Here's the region as well. We can look at the map. Turned out fantastic. Even if you have the latest mobile update, actually, this version of the map is currently in the mobile app, just because we have to ship the map with an update. So there's no way to kind of not have it appear until the Winter Hunt unless we held the update till then. That's not very fun on release day if you don't have all the other winter content. It's even fun. You may pay attention to this little shipment, this little supply chain that's been set up. But anyway, let's go to Rodentia. Let me just double check this here. Yeah, so there's kind of one thing we're thinking about here, because the golems are a decent way to get sand dollars of adding the adventure requirements. So you won't be able to buy these until you have completed the adventure to capture Tritus. And that might kind of be a good way to still have the golems be very valuable in some areas when it comes to rewards like that, while still kind of just gating something behind. You have to hunt in the area a little bit to have such an iconic reward associated with that area. New horn surely looks great. There you go. Summit spotted it right away. We do have the new horn is now up and running in this version with the Great Winter Hunt. I even give it a sound. You can see the new animation that's playing. We demoed this on other Feedback Fridays as well. Just want to make sure we got this right. It's such an iconic part of the game, right? We didn't want to kind of spoil it for anybody. Speaking of spoilers, heads up too if you're watching this and you're the type of player who doesn't like spoilers. You like to kind of dive in and figure out things for yourself on release day. You might want to turn it off. There'll be some mild spoilers here. We won't go too deep, but Jonathan, is there still going to be glazed pecan pecorino, and does that attract the glazy mouse, or does it become too normal of a mouse? So yeah, just as I mentioned, yes, pecan, glazed pecan. You can actually see them on the HUD over there. They're both still the event cheese for this year, and the glazed mouse is exclusively attracted to glazed pecan. Drops a good amount of golden parts. The Joy Mouse is another mouse that you need glazed to attract, has some special drops. The Snowflake is mostly attracted to glazed, but you can attract her with pecan cheese as well, and she has some good drops as well. Camel Toothlets as a reward needs some prestige base push. I do believe, yeah, we got that noted down. We might add those to Mosu Pichu. Jonathan, idea, smash Let It Snow charms into glazed pecan winter charms into normal? Yes, so I might be a little bit behind in the chat. So currently anyway, again, everything's subject to change just in case something comes up during final playtesting. But that's how it's implemented right now. I can smash Let It Snow charms into glazed and winter charms into normal. And that basically fulfills the same function they had last year. The Let It Snow charm would help you get golem parts a little bit quicker. That's also what glazed does. It gets to get golem parts a little bit quicker. So. Can we have a charm to summon High Tide to catch the Riptide mice like the Realm Ripper? I think we'd hold off on that a little bit, Ryan. We're kind of Balak's Cove's in kind of a weird spot. It's pretty far antiquated gameplay. It was the last area we released during MouseHunt version 2, and if we were to design that area today, it would be very different because it just kind of punishes you for not checking back versus rewarding you for checking back. And there's some other kind of awkwardness with that area, actually. Jake, who's been going through the game and doing little tweaks here and there just to kind of smooth things out best he can without investing kind of front end like interface or developer kind of time into it. Just number change tweaks, seeing how much he can do with a pass like that. And that's the area he's been looking at for a few days, just to smooth out a few of the rough edges in Balak's Cove. But all that said, I think if we ever get to the point where we're able to reimagine that area, I think we kind of do away with the tide mechanic. Bronto noticing that the golems have different colors, so that is something kind of workshopping this year as well to kind of help keep tabs on which one's which. Where did I send it? Where, in case it helps someone to think like I'm sending my blue golem here, my purple golem here, my green golem here. Open to feedback on that if it looks odd or if it introduces any sort of confusion, but it's a very subtle hue just to kind of distinguish the 3 slots. James, how many pecan cheese does a smashed winter charm give you? It's 1-to-1. Sean, I guess it's time to roll up the snowball charms with the all-season base. Exactly, and it's part of our ongoing design philosophy too, to free up your charm slot, not kind of take it over. It's just an older gameplay mechanic from before we had heads-up displays, and now it's been replaced, much like the incense replaced the gloomy gathering charm. We have Festive Spirit, which replaces actually it doesn't replace, it does something different than those charms did, but sort of the same idea. I can be consuming something to give myself a small bonus without having to take up the charm slot. So hey, if you've got that all-season track base from last year, great time to be rolling up your snowball charm, especially if you have a big powerful trap and don't need a more powerful base equipped. Tarako green, yes, toothlets please. Golem looks great with a different color. Summit's liking it. Jack, thankfully there wasn't a yellow golem. And actually, if you'll excuse me, I'll be back in just 1 minute and then we'll shift in. Well, I think we'll get into some golem rewards as well. But I will be back in 30 seconds to 1 minute. Did Dave spill coffee again? Uh-oh, no. I was just saying goodbye to my wife who was leaving for the day, so I thought I'd say goodbye to her before she hits the road. Scrib, what is the difference between the golems again? Well, you can send them to any a destination of your choosing, any area that you have unlocked and you meet the title requirement for, you can send your golem there. Blue, purple, green. That's purely just visual. That's it. And a bit of an experiment to see if that helps out. Just kind of create a connection between where am I sending that golem. If maybe you have one golem that you're keeping a little bit higher level than the others, just to kind of, when you look over at the screen and look away, it's one more visual cue of what's what. That said, it made it a very, very subtle cue, so I'd imagine that might not be too easy to see for everybody, because I didn't want to overdo it as well, and it might look weird. So it's a bit of an experiment this year. If we get negative feedback and things return as they are next year, then we could definitely undo that little bit of a tint they have. Script, clearly I must be colorblind. It is a very subtle difference, and I would say that probably doesn't meet requirements to be distinguished enough to be clear and obvious to everybody. So, more of an experimental feature than a focus. But they will kind of talk about where they are as well. So, and you have the levels, so just in case, I don't know, you want to remember, you know what, my green one, that's where I'm sending to the table of contents. So I'll just remember it that way. Just one more kind of way to go about that. Well, there's a befriend button mode in dev mode. No, this is a test environment, so that does not exist in the live game. That's just an easier way when we're getting a test up and running that we don't have to send out friend requests to like 20 different people to test out like profile, supply transfers and gifting and what have you. And actually, fair enough here. I usually actually like to just block that off so it's not a distraction here. We'll nuke that. Kaboom. Why not make the golems Christmas colored red, green, white? I'll try to pick more subtle hues than that, but yeah, not to dwell on it for too long, but it's just kind of a visual change. Pronto, the horn is awfully quick. It's 8 seconds. So again, test environment. You may also notice I basically have unlimited golem parts, unlimited bells. I have an absolute obscene amount of them just to be able to send out some golems and see what rewards are like. And speaking of which, we should kind of get down to trying that out. And so, I don't know, just even soundboarding, want to kind of gauge player sentiment reaction. In case you're watching this recorded and don't feel, left out in that, this is just one means that we kind of gauge sentiments and feedback, and have to then look for comments in different spots, whether it's Facebook, a Facebook group, Discord, the fan page, etc., etc. But where shall we send a golem? We should probably upgrade them. This guy's still at level 2. Maybe we'll go up to level 5 to start. And a lot of great new interfaces. We shared some of the mobile interfaces last week. Josh, Param, Andrew did a fantastic work there. So our team putting together assets. Whole team's kind of touched every little bit of this, but everything's turned out so well so far. This one's currently set to go to Prologue Pond. Sure, let's send it out there. No hat, and we're impatient. We'll ring the bell just so we can demo some of these quicker. And just to kind of give a rough sense of, rewards and what to maybe expect soundboard. Again, that big red message above it. If you're the type of person who likes to screenshot things to share them later, try to include that big message at the top because things may certainly change. In fact, they already have. These rewards in some areas are already out of date, but that's still useful. We can gauge sentiment and even kind of confirm notes of some of the things that we've changed. Scrib doesn't see the difference. This scares me. It is very subtle, Scrib. And, on stream, it's small and stuff, what have you. Actually, the attraction rate for pecan cheese is super high. I believe they're both 100%. Subra, will you do the same to gate folklore forest traps behind the adventure because you can spam golems to get prizes? Prizes have been removed, so you cannot get Nobel prizes from golems. How many golem do you expect a normal player with like 60, 70 hunts per day? Off the top of my head, I don't think I have that number. And we have in kind of spreadsheet mode, and as well, we've been doing kind of casual playthroughs, if you will, kind of from start to finish. But I kind of jotted that down, but I don't want to misspeak. Jazzard, any plans for making older mice, like the Big Bad Burrows, Assassin, etc., easier during map hunting? Slowly but surely, we're trying to overhaul a few old areas, or not even overhaul, tweak, until we can, such time we can do an overhaul. Ashley, how many scarves are we expecting to potentially end up with by the end? Mileage is certainly going to vary. And that's something we're still kind of tuning a little bit here. That's going to be a big focus going into next week as well. But the aim is to have enough of them that you enjoy them, but not every single golem's going out with them. So it's still a very special moment when it happens. Ash says randomize. Yes, that is one thing here. You can randomize the look of your golem. We're going to see if we can get the arrows back in here to change the look, but maybe not, because we did put a little bit of logging on that last year, and we found next to nobody changed the look of their golem, so it might be time that better spent elsewhere. But you can still randomize it. All that's in place. Send this one out with a hat. You can see on the HUD too, you remember which one you sent out with a hat. So Prologue Pond with a hat as well. Great for ink. Get some condensed creativity in there as well. Jonathan likes the idea of freeing up the charm slot for greater choice of uses if you're not having to use a specific cheese. Some areas could go either way. Need specific charms, but any cheese. Yeah, just in general, right? They should, and that'll help sort of with that feeling of there's just so many charms. You'll have those bread and butter ones that you just remember, and they have such a solid, strong identity. When I'm hunting tough mice, like one of these 3 charms, those are my heavy hitters. When I'm just kind of, I just want a little bonus to help me out, these are my, like, burner charms, if you will. Just ones I always put on my trap. Don't think too much about it. Put the subject to change disclaimer in the middle of the screen. I'll nudge it down a little bit, maybe. I'll nudge it down without obscuring anything. That is important, though, just to avoid disappointment, FYI. The whole purpose of this is to continually change and tune. So this is not final. In fact, it is very likely to not go out the way it is. But that all comes down to kind of feedback sentiment from both, stream in general too. We'll be keeping an eye on comments afterwards, and just the whole team play testing as well, and kind of giving their 2 cents as we go. Jonathan, example spring hunt. If you want extra charms, you can go pretty much any area you like. Yeah, but that could also be easily moved into a HUD thing, and then that frees up your charm slot if you wanted to hunt the shattering mice. Not to go down the. Not to sidetrack us onto the spring egg hunt. I'm losing my ability to speak here. But then that would free up your charm slot. If there's a mouse that you need a charm to hunt while you want the egg, well, wouldn't it be better if it was in the HUD? Not that we're doing that this year, but just saying that would be the outcome of that. Ralph kind of reminds you of Nest Rewards in the Geyser. Yeah, it has a similar vibe to that. Jack, you're not sure how you feel about important loot for an area, like if it should be included in golem rewards. That's always going to be a little subjective, and everyone has different thoughts. Kind of where we start with it is a golem comes back in 25 hunts, right? So, 25 hunts, 25 times 25 is 1,000. 1,000 times 1,000 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 is 1,000. we kind of think, okay, if I were to spend 25 hunts in that area, what would I find? And that's roughly what a golem comes back with. Okay, now, there's lots of different grains of salt in there of different areas work in different ways. And, sometimes you can stockpile a bunch of supplies to rapidly use them for 25 ultra rewarding hunts. But we're talking big picture, when I'm just cycling this thing over enough time, on average, what do I get after 25 hunts? And that's kind of where we start with. That's what a golem comes back with. So if you have 2 golems coming back, it's like it's double loot. And if you have 3, it's kind of like it's triple loot. And so just so you know, we don't pull them out of thin air. That's sort of the starting point. We make a list of relevant items to that area. Then we kind of look at typical, how many do I get in 25 hunts? And then that's kind of where we put a golem with. And then, you got to tune it a little bit for perception as well sometimes. This makes a big difference. Just sending a golem there, watching the reward come back. Often you're like, mathematically it makes sense, but perception-wise, it looks disappointing, or it doesn't even need to be that good to look rewarding. Camo Stormy Clam and Bear Potion makes Cleverless Clams obsolete. If you can infinitely sustain those potions, absolutely, but you do eventually run out. I hope scarves aren't too powerful and do things like devalue ribs. Well, one of the kind of goals of that scarf is it's just one item. That's it. It's just one thing it comes back with, and it's just trying to pick something. Well, if you're sending a golem to that area, it's an item, or it's maybe it's an easier to get but large quantity of item that if you're playing that area, you are going to be interested in that item. It's kind of one of either the better items, or it's a good chunk of something you need a lot of. Brendan, you tend to customize your golems, though. You tend to make each one of the animal forms. And not to say no one did, but I can't remember off the top of my head. I think 5 million golems last year were sent out with customizations. I don't have this in front of me. I could be missing a 0 for all I know. And was it over 250,000 sent without? I don't know. I don't have it in front of me. I think it was under 1% of all golems sent out were ever customized. And so just, it's a nice to have, but if we kind of run out of time, it's sort of lower on the priority list just because it didn't get a lot of usage. Matt, the mystery is now ruined. Tune out. If you liked a big surprise, and that said, you're still going to get a little bit of a surprise because all this is going to change next week, kind of based on, in fact, I already have a list of, it's about 100 changes to make, and we're just kind of trying to come up with all the changes at once and then go apply them and then play through it all again and see what else we need to do. Possible to show a rift area reward. Sounds good. Let's upgrade a few more golems here. Let's get them all to at least level 5. And a familiar item, reinforced ice shards, have returned, and that is the item that you use to upgrade your golem. And now the golems just straight up come back with that item, whereas last year they came back with compressed cinnamon, and you'd have to click a button on the HUD to basically just turn it in to milk and cookies to upgrade your golems. Golems just come back with the item, so you can immediately upgrade them. But sure, let's pick out the Rift. Let's do the Valor Rift. We'll go without a hat. Cool, here. Why not Bristlewood's Rift? Out you go. And you, Mr. Golem, shall go to the Feroma Rift. Let me be sounding my horn in the background a little bit. Deborah, QR is way off. If I'm at level 10 and use the Queso Factory Trap and even add a Pump Charm, I bring back way more than 100 to 200 blank queso. That's why, your mileage may vary, and we kind of aim. Some areas are tough, especially the areas where you kind of upgrade yourself. And it depends on kind of the slots. Sometimes then we save the hat for, okay, if I'm like fully done the area, I've made all the upgrades and everything I can do, the hat slots are a little bit closer to what you get in 25 hunts, whereas the other ones are maybe aimed more towards someone who started the area or is just kind of like a third of the way, halfway through it. That's the approach we took with the Folklore Forest locations. A lot of the amounts of like ink and papyrus from your golem slots are kind of somebody who has maybe 3 or 4 of the upgrades, but they're not done the whole area. Otherwise, somebody who never started with it, it would just be this tidal wave of stuff. Then and they would kind of have all the upgrades instantly. But removing prizes as well from those tables made a pretty big difference as well, because eventually you run into an upgrade that you need those for. Well, let's just bring this here so we don't have to wait for all the hunts. So Valor Rift. And actually, this is an area where we have a lot of notes for change. This was one of the more popular areas last year. It was the second most popular area last year was Valor Rift. And so even already we've going to basically think we can almost entirely remove Elixir. I think we're going to still keep it on there so that it makes sense, but maybe double down more on some of the Rift themed charms you're getting. So the identity of this is it's a great place to go to stockpile some of those Rift charms. Hey, maybe you're looking to do a prestige push, something to help boost up your catch rate a little bit. That's what we'll keep elixirs in the mix, because you always need a few of them, but you can get to a point where like, I don't need any more elixirs. I'm pretty set for quite a while. Matt was being silly, Dave, hence the winky face. All right, Matt, good to know. Sarcasm over the internet, sometimes tough to pick up on. Ralph, you like the golem showing up on the travel map? Don't lose that. I don't know if that's still there or not. Well, let's go check it out, actually. Why not? Where do I have one right now? In the Rift Plane. And I think I have one where in the Bristlewoods Rift. Is it still there? No, it's not still there. It's not still there. Really curious about changes, if any, Whiskerwoods Rift and Feroma Rift. All right, let's fire these up. So if this is Bristlewoods. I think very similar stuff to last year as far as I remember. Bristlewoods Rift was up there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7th most popular location. That's kind of where we spent a lot more time kind of putting things under the microscope. A note we already have here is to add portal scramblers back. They were last year. We took them off. I think we're going to just sprinkle them in lightly. They're the type of resource you kind of can end up with too many of them, but they're still a nice to have. And changing around to the ratio of cogs. Yeah, the scarf is... This is actually a good example of the scarf slot. Let's send this one out with everything on it. Makes me feel like I'm ordering a pizza or something. Yeah, I'll have everything on it, please. So, hey, it's a good example of the scarf slot. It's just one thing. But odds are, if you're interested in that area, you're going to like the thing that the scarf comes back. But the scarves kind of slowly come in over time. That said, as you upgrade your golems, you increase your ability to get scarves quicker. But they're not in the premium shop. You can't buy them from the premium shop. You can't trade them. You can't buy them from the marketplace. It is purely just playing the Great Winter Hunt, and every once in a while you find a scarf. Ash, is there an indicator of how many times you visited an area? I think that made it back. There was last year. All the interfaces have been reworked, though, so I'm pretty sure I saw that. More charms from the table of contents, using up all my good charms. So that is something we'll workshop. I think Valor Rift, that might become its identity. We jotted that down. Table of contents, I think we're going to add some more condensed creativity to try to make its identity a good place to stockpile a little condensed creativity during the Winter Hunt. We are removing Nobel prizes. They were currently in the hat slot, but just after playing it, just didn't work, and there was very similar sentiment from players. And that's always a big check mark in our books when we're like, this isn't working, and see some comments, and a lot of other players are like, nah, I don't think that makes sense. Like, all right, cool, we're on the same page. Maybe Rainbow Spore Charms as well, the table of contents. They have an identity there, and it's very useful if you're doing your, if you're doing a table of contents run, to have some good charms on hand. But this one's a good example. Like, odds are, if you're interested in the Bristlewoods Rift, you're probably interested in Time Split runes. So kind of an example of the identity of the scarf. Feroma Rift. You can ring my bell. So, as you'd expect things to help you out in the Feroma Rift. Create some cheese. Going back to what I said before, kind of the starting point we often work with is, if I were to spend 25 hunts in the Feroma Rift, or actually maybe a better way to think of it, because you need because 25 hunts in the Feroma Rift, well, that varies. Was it 25 hunts against, using rumble cheese or using regular cheese, right? It's kind of, if I did 1,000 hunts just cycling this thing over and over and over again, you know, on average, how much per hunt was I getting of every item, and then times that by 25. That's kind of what we use as our starting point. Christopher, no sigil secrets or Champion's Fire for Valor. I believe Champion's Fire is a possibility. Sigils and secrets, so much like Bloodstone, Howlite, and now Nobel prizes too. That's kind of why we decided to remove those. They're sort of in the same category. They're kind of they're how you experience the area, right? Like it's basically finishing the adventure for you if we give you those. So those are kind of off the table, and instead things to help you earn those quicker. Shotgun Jack asking, what were the top 5 places last year? Floating Islands, Valor Rift, Queso Geyser, Sunken City, Zokor. Those were the top 5 last year. Tempted now to throw all of your scarves at Geyser to roll a rib. Well, that might be... Let's see what happens if we send one out. What are the odds that this actually happens right now? Slim, but let's see what happens. We're going to the Geyser! Okay, I got some Ultimate Dragonbane charms. I got a big stack, 30 of them. So that's actually a good example of, hey, it's not always kind of that single item that's very impactful, but when it isn't, it's a large quantity of something that is valuable or extremely useful if you're spending time in that area. Theta asking, would it be possible to add a checkbox when creating a golem, like with the hat and scarf, to automatically spend bells on it to finish without actually sending it out? You know, fair suggestion to kind of streamline that process of belling the golems. That said, you know, during testing it feels a little tedious when we're doing something like this because we're just, you know, one after another, and it's like I don't even have to hunt to make this work. Whereas you do need to hunt in the actual game a little bit. You have to get you eventually run out of golem parts. Where I've set myself up to not run out of golem parts very quick at all. Is there a limit to what level we can upgrade the golems? No limit whatsoever. That said, your ability to earn reinforced ice shards increases linearly, so a straight line. The cost of upgrading your golems increases exponentially. So realistically, there comes a point where the next level is just obscenely expensive, and there just isn't enough time in the entire event to get that many reinforced ice shards. So there's a soft cap, but we literally don't have a literal cap on how high it can go. I think last year the highest level golem was 24. I'd imagine that'd probably be a little higher this year. It's a little easier to earn reinforced ice shards. That said, we have changed kind of the curve of upgrading. It's a little cheaper, some of the earlier upgrades, so you kind of get to level 10 faster. And after that's, you know, that's where that exponential increase starts kicking in a little harder. But you do have a new source of reinforced ice shards. Your golems come back with them, and actually every time you defeat the boss, you're going to get some as well. Dallas, would be nice if the golem rewards were adjusted for adventure book progress, so no diamond cheese unless the adventure is complete. Yeah, you know, there's a few outliers here and there, and the diamond cheese might be a bit of a hot button issue, eh? We can jot that down for Fungal Cavern. It wasn't too popular last year, to be honest. It's a little lower on the list. That's it. It was just above Cantera Quarry. Which Cantera Quarry has had quite the overhaul done to it. How do I add a check mark here? Well, where possible, we try to avoid too much complexity and being able to understand what can I get from a golem. But I understand the sentiment as well. That's an adventure where you more or less just need one piece of cheese to do the hard part, right? So diamond cheese, maybe, replacing those with diamond boost charms. So you still have to kind of get to that spot, but once you're there, you're getting a lot more diamonds. But we're trying to phase those charms out at the same time. So it's in a bit of a tough spot, and it being an older area as well, it kind of leads to the much more interesting labyrinth in Zokor, and maybe it's not the end of the world if you can go through that maybe a little quicker than we'd like. I need to sound my horn. Rib incoming. Alas, no rib. We got Ultimate Dragonbane charms. Giorgio's watching and he just spotted a bug. So there's a problem with the hat. It is supposed to give your aura or make your aura go longer. I think that is actually missing from that claim interface. Ryan asking if the Relic Hunter location is correct for the day. As far as I know, there's no problems with that. What is? Was it maybe a 5 or 10%? I think it's under 10% encounter if I recall correctly. Don't quote me on that. As a total guess for Feroma Rift, hat and scarf look like the Rift Rumble Onyx Let's send one there and see what happens. So Feroma Rift, we're saying. It's true here. A new search box. Andrew just added that earlier this week. Hey, look at that. I can search and go right to it. I think there's that counter. We'll confirm here. All right, we'll send out a fully loaded extra large pizza with all the toppings on it to the Feroma Rift. Kind of a good sense of hierarchy here of, hey, the hat is kind of a good dose of some of the higher tier stuff. To kind of going back to that, hey, what would you typically get in 25 hunts? That one's dialed up a little bit, and you only get 3 slots, so it's kind of a nice way to make it look a little extra juicy. Whereas the other, the other slots you can just keep adding 1 and 1 and 1 up to a degree anyway. Past level 10, it starts to get a little tricky. Potato, will some info regarding the possible items you get be shown in game? That is kind of on the list for next year. There's just no time. We're already in testing. We've already broken that rule and added some new functionality. Typically, you don't want to add brand new functionality during testing. You just want to make what's there better. But we've broken that rule, but enough actually. The kind of I'm gonna say today is our code freeze, and next week we are just kind of testing, tuning, tweaking. If it ain't broke, don't fix it, and just playing around with these rewards. And that's actually why I took Feedback Friday this week to try to see how much conversation we can get going on stream, after stream. Good food for thought, because it's really what we're going to be dialed in and focused on next week, to just try to massage these drop tables into a place that we like them. Zokor and Queso Geyser all trying to test our luck for the elusive temporal shadow plate in the rib. That's interesting too, like Zokor and Labyrinth. Maybe we can send ones there. That was still reasonably popular last year. Let me upgrade the golems a little scooch higher here. Let's go to level 8. Why not? Still do that. I still close the interface. I don't know why, but you don't have to. You can navigate right here. So I've got 2 level 8 golems. Let's send this one to, where did we say? Labyrinth. Not the lavatory. Don't send it there. Let's send one to the Labyrinth. And let's send one to, what did we say? Zokor. Ryan asking, will ice shards be available in Snowball Showdown like how Cinnamon used to be? Yes, so you can get the reinforced ice shards from the Snowball Showdown. And if I recall correctly, if you upgrade it, you can find an item that's slightly better than a reinforced ice shard, but still gives you reinforced ice shards. We'll see just how far we get into the gameplay to see if we demo that at all. Kind of want to focus on these rewards. Just get lots of food for thought, right? Kind of get what impressions and sentiment are just kind of in our minds. What resonates. What is it? Is any kind of poignant observation come up? Like, yeah, you're right. Let's spend a little time and smooth that out. Just because all the tables have been redone, not from scratch. We had last year to start with, but if this comes back again next year, as years past have shown, we get so much great feedback over like, hey, what should golems come back with for every area, that we can kind of tune that and refine it year after year. But this is an opportunity to try to do it before it's even released as best we can. That's tricky, but. So, Labyrinth, hey, things to help you go through the Labyrinth, and Lantern Oil as well, which helps you go through the Labyrinth, and that's very unique to the Labyrinth. Zokor, you do not get Lantern Oil, or it's extremely uncommon to get it from Zokor. Whereas Zokor, you're kind of rolling the dice, and you're hoping you end up with stuff that you would find in Zokor, but the goal here is somebody who's sent all their golems to Zokor versus somebody who sent all their golems to Labyrinth. The person who sent them to the Labyrinth, once they use up all those supplies they got, they're going to end up with a lot more stuff. But they have to invest the time to run the Labyrinth and keep going through it and going through Zokor. So Zokor is perhaps a little bit more rewarding, but not as efficient in terms of, well, if I wanted to spend the time there. And, remember, too, you're spending time at the Great Winter Hunt. So, it could be time you spent at Zokor. Alberg asking, have we finalized the name for the seafloor? We ended up reverting that until we can find just the right idea for it. So you're referring to a previous Feedback Friday. We're going to do a bit of a region overhaul while we're adding the Taiga. And I had a couple rough edges we didn't like. We figured, you know what, let's just, hey, if it ain't broke, don't fix it until we know exactly what we want to do with it. So yes, we're still thinking it over and just trying to find just the right solution. But that's gone. You can see all the regions are those that you already know. We've just added the Great Winter Taiga. Maybe we'll just hang out in the workshop for a little bit, if for no other reason, to see some cool looking droids. John's so excited for this winter hunt, so obviously all the amazing hard work has paid off. A whole team just poured their heart and soul into it, I think. So I think it's turned out fantastic. It's super fun. Actually, I've covered up the awesome horn now. I should move that disclaimer back up. Slide to the top. Crisscross. All right. And this new horn will be coming out on Tuesday, so ahead of the Great Winter Hunt. You can kind of experience a nice little new animation, high resolution asset now. Pixelization is gone of what was once illustrated in 2008. Terry popped in late. Did you do a Warpath Golem with a scarf? All right, sounds good to me. Let's send one to the Warpath. Feel free to chime in too with suggestions, impressions, what have you. Like I said, I have a big notepad going with every area in the game, a little like check boxes, and kind of we can go through that all next week as a team and see what resonates with us. I think these are the counters of where you sent golems. Yeah, see, this is a 2 because I sent 2 to the Froma Rift, so that is still there. But we're going to the Warpath. And we want to see it fully loaded. Mustard, ketchup, pickles, everything. I'm going to have a hamburger for lunch if this keeps up. All right, ring my bell. I promise I'll stop singing. That was a pretty good one. I got triple flame shards too from the hat. So here's an example of the Warpath. Okay, things to help you out in the Warpath. If I recall correctly, changes from last year, I think we got rid of all like the lower tier charms. I mean, I don't know. I don't want those. Do you want those? I don't want those. And we just went with the super tier. Got a portal console from the scarf. So, you know, again, those sort of high ticket items, if odds are, if you're interested in the Warpath, we're trying to find things that are going to possible scarf rewards. Are like, well, odds are you're going to appreciate seeing that, you know. And if it's kind of a lower tier item, at least it's a larger quantity of it. I'm way behind in chat here. We're getting some good suggestions rolling in here now. Would love to see Floating Islands and Sunken City. Let's do it. So, Floating Islands, away you go. Sunken City. Launch. Is there a third while we're going? You just share asking, where can we find cinnamon? I can't see any from Mice Loot. Well, there's an area called Cinnamon Hill. I'll leave it at that. We'll see if we get the powers of deduction can kick in. John, I need to unlock new areas so I can send Golem. Correct. You need access to the area and you need to meet the title requirement. Otherwise, it's just not in the list. Can you send one to the tournament halls? The next one I saw there. Sure. Let's go tournament hall. Let's upgrade this guy first. Let's go to level 8. I've got this chat scrolled up. I'm trying to catch up. I'm doing my best. Tournament hall, I think that got a little bit of an overhaul, if I recall correctly. Yeah, runny cheese. That was feedback from last year. Hey, can we get runny cheese? All right, I'm going to have to scroll down in the chat here. I'm way behind. Let's speed this up here. We'll power. Claim some golems quickly. I'll stop rambling so much. All right, Floating Islands. An Ember Charm, I'll take it. So ore and glass, and this is actually a good example. This is very similar to last year. The ore and the glass is kind of tuned to be on the lower end. Someone with a lower level Oculus, kind of what you'd expect. And kind of, you know, papyrus and ink, that's kind of where we went with that as well. You know, you're kind of on the lower end of the upgrades, and the hat slot's a little bit more, well, maybe you're almost done the area, because you only get 3 of those. So, you know, this was kind of where it was last year. And, you know, it does kind of break that rule of things you use to buy area upgrades, but it's kind of a smaller amount. So realistically, somebody with a level 1 Oculus who spent the entire Great Winter Hunt here versus if they ignored the Winter Hunt and just spent all that time at the Floating Islands, they're probably going to be about in the same spot. They're probably coming out a little bit ahead of the Great Winter Hunt. But, you know, other than that, kind of, you know, it's tuned toward the lower end. Jonathan, your golems are how you got the portal parts to bronze the artillery commander. It's a good time to get them for sure. James asking for a fully loaded one to... Okay, let's power this through here. Mausu Picchu will be next. So here's floating islands. Is the console a guarantee with a scarf? I don't believe so. Sunken City coming back. Ooh, 5 sand dollars. I might jot down, is it time to retire the festive anchor charm? I mean, I just love seeing it. It's adorable. You can smash them into regular anchor charms now. But maybe it's time to retire them as just a cute little item. I don't know. I'll jot that down. Where is Sunken City in my notepad? I got a lot of areas here. Hey, we have no notes about the Sunken City yet. Look at that. Let me know what you think in the chat. Do you still like to see those? I mean, you can't arm them from the HUD, so they're kind of awkward. But it's also sort of fun. If you do send a lot of them to the Sunken City, at the end, it's a bit like Cursed Gold. You can go like, oh, I can see my final tally. How many of these did I get? And I don't know, they just look adorable. I love the garland is the chain. And I don't know, I'm a sucker for a nice looking art asset, I guess. The art team makes so many beautiful things. I like to keep them in the game to experience them. Here's the tournament hall. Hey, I got some runny cheese. I believe that is new. Last year you couldn't get runny cheese. That was an oversight on our behalf because this area received a bit of an overhaul and nobody touched the golem. Table for there. Hey, the mega tournament token is in there. It looks like a delicious peanut butter cup. I don't know if that's just me, but I always get a little bit snacky when I see that. Good way to get tournament tokens without doing tournaments, especially because tournaments are in a bit of a sad state of affairs. That said, I don't really know what you're doing with those tournament tokens once you have so much stuff. And some champions charms as well. But I heard Mausu Picchu, so let's go to Mausu Picchu. I'll do my best to kind of read the chat as we do this, but I'm sure there'll be, and I think fully loaded, sure, we'll put on the relish. Let's see what other area we can spot. Fiery Warpath looks good, but which area gives the best value of loot when Scarf Hat used? I think that's something best left to players, to explore and talk about and kind of, I think our role is to provide feedback to explain what's happening and maybe how to start it, but not the best way to do something. That tends to be kind of information overload. To try to spell all that out. Then it's an instruction manual. It ceases being a game once you stop having to make decisions for yourself. Do not retire any festive charms, says Terrence. I have some irrational attachment to them myself. I think it's irrational. I think it not irrational. I think it is rational, that attachment. They just look cool. Like these water jet charms, says Ryan from the Sunken City. Eric says maybe retire them. We can maybe keep that conversation going. We'll try to keep our ear to the ground on that. Smash the festive anchors into sand dollars. They go back into regular charms, because otherwise they should just be sand dollars. There's probably enough sand dollars coming from that. Aaron, I agree, and it matches the new charm simplification philosophy. That's a good example. If we were to do the Sunken City today, you would collect disposable anchors, or I don't know what narrative we would come up with, and you would just drop anchor from the HUD, right? We can probably even show that your anchor comes out behind your sub. I don't know, maybe it costs you a chain link every time it uses. I don't know, we'd have to come up with a narrative to explain it. But that's probably how we would approach it. And then when you're going through the monster trench, then you can bust out a big charm that you've been saving, right? Whereas if we kept using charms, it's like, look at all these awesome charms that I never ever get to use because the game says, no, I'm sorry, there's only these 2 charms you're ever allowed to use in this area. Schoolwork asking for Lost City, Living Garden, Sand Dunes would be great to see. Let's do that right now. Let's do it. So Mausu Picchu, fully loaded, all the toppings. Tooth! I got a tooth from the scarf. Love to see it. Some dragon scales, extreme dragon bane, ooh, little fireball fuel from the hat as well. And then some of the cheese to help you get going. And there are potions to make said cheese. Have you done sending a floating island fully loaded golem? Let's do that. We did a regular one. Let's do an example of floating islands. I think this is a good way to do it too, because it still leaves a little bit of mystery, but it's enough to get an impression, and it's more visual. Floating island with all the toppings. That's probably the almost the absolute best type of golem I could get there. All right, I'll take it. And I think we do have, this was the most popular area last year because it was the newest area. And one thing we jotted down, not sure about the jewel and the scarf. Maybe the trove is just inherently more exciting because it's multiple jewels and the chance of more. So this almost seems like the hat is better than the scarf. So might play around with that a little bit. And trying to find where storm cells, kind of the best place storm cells should sit in there. Aaron, OMG, those. I think that was a pretty lucky roll, I think. That was pretty good. All right, the Living Garden Complex, though, that is ever popular as well. Let's go there. That's what I'm very interested in as well. We'll do a few rounds at the Living Garden Complex, Sandtail Desert. Okay, we'll start with just some regular ones. May as well, you know, all three of them, send them out. Let's get you to level 8. Not the tournament hall. We are going to go to the sand dunes. How are we doing on time? It's noon already. I worried this might be a longer feedback Friday. All right, we'll try to speed things up a little bit here. All right, you can ring my bell. So Living Garden Complex, let's do one regular sweep and then a fully loaded. Ash says a tooth with the scarf feels somewhat underwhelming. I'd be interested to kind of hear you expand upon that a little bit. Gets you progress toward a lightning map, even if you're kind of done with the area and you don't need the teeth. You can smash them into toothlets if that's what you're looking for. But, you know, you sent it to Machu Picchu, right? And, like, that's arguably one of those things from Machu Picchu that you're looking to get, right? So if it's a little underwhelming, I might, between the lines there, I might kind of, maybe the sentiment is you're not interested in Machu Picchu as much. I mean, Dragonbane charms are nice because you could sell them on the market. But then you might want to, play around with other areas. If it's purely, well, whatever my golems come back with, I want to just liquidate for gold. There might be better spots than Machu Picchu anyway. All right, Living Garden. Some petals and some essences. I think we do have quite a few notes going as well. This one's a little tricky. I wish I just wrote down Living Garden all together rather than breaking it up. Yeah, I think we want to increase the essences here, tone down some of the petals. The petals are already much, much better than they were last year. I think maybe just dial that back a little bit more to what it was like last year and add some more essences in there. Yeah, just kind of basically get there. There used to be, I won't call it junk, it's stuff you need, but it's stuff I can get myself, right? There used to be sponge charms and what have you. Those are gone. Replace those with petals. I think maybe though it's better, let's replace those with essences. So at least you can decide, hey, if you want sponge charms, here's some essences, go buy sponge charms. Or maybe you're just crafting them up to make an eye essence. Cool, here's a few more to throw on the pile. Yeah, Jonathan kind of agreeing that should be the other way around, the jewels and the hat and the troves and the scarf. We jotted that down as well. So like I said, huge grain of salt up there. These aren't the rewards that are going to be in the live game. In fact, I guarantee it because we've already made changes that are not in this version of the game that I'm playing. But that's still a great sounding board to see. If you have the exact same suggestions that we had in mind, then that means, hey, we're not too far off base. But here's Living Garden again. I'm very interested in Living Garden. I know kind of they were up there in terms of popularity. They weren't the most popular areas, but the people who send their golems to the Living Garden are very invested in sending them to Living Garden. So, I'm interested to get as much feedback as possible. Similar to Lost City here, again, probably want a few more essences to show up there. Sand dunes. And petals, I kind of got lucky with the essences there, actually. I got mostly essences, whereas it's, for the most part, you usually get petals, not essences. But we can send out some fully loaded ones as well. FYI, I have 492 scarves. I don't like to predict, but no one's getting 500 scarves during the Great Winter Hunt. It's not happening. And everywhere, somewhere, somebody just said challenge accepted. But no, I don't think you could. I don't think there's enough time. Okay, fully loaded Living Garden. Ooh. So petals are kind of strongly in the identity of the scarf there. School saying tooth with the scarf seems amazing to be great. Guaranteed that would be insane. Comes down to how hard are these scarves to get though, right? Catherine, love to get teeth. They have lots of usefulness. Yeah. So it can be a little polarizing too, I'd imagine. Kind of some feedback, hey, if you're not very interested in that area, some things may feel a little underwhelming, but at least you have the agency, right, to kind of, well, I'll send my golem somewhere else then. It's a great, because there's just such a wide variety of areas, there's a little something for everybody. More essences, less petals, please, says Tarako. Kind of glad to see that. Some similar sentiment we were having in our notes here. So it's kind of good to see, okay, there's some hunters agreeing with us there, kind of confirm what we're thinking. Ryan, did we send it fully loaded to the geyser? Yes, we did. Matt, loot is great. I love Gilded Charms the most. Raining super breed. Yeah, just as you level up your golems, if you have the Lucky Golem Shield, you can see, hey, I'm getting Gilded Charms. You might notice in the middle, too, that's a new item. Hailstones are coming back. And I don't know if we'll get to maybe playing any of the other gameplay. We'll see. If we could have E and above essences, it would be great. More essences are great since I need Ikuri essence. I think a lot of it's in an interesting spot where there are higher level hunters who are still very interested. And, you know, it's maybe a smaller subgroup, but still very interested in the Living Garden complex just to craft some essences. I said, don't want to go too far with making eyes too easy to get, but, you know, it's a good time of year to get them maybe 3 times as fast. That's kind of the goal. Hey, if I've got 3 golems going, it's like I'm getting loot 3 times as fast. Because it's almost like you can think of it every time your golem goes on a hunt, or every time you hunt with a golem out, it's like your golem just collected a little bit of loot from the area as though you were hunting there. That's kind of, again, that's where we sort of get our starting point from, and then tune from there. Jonathan may be wrong, but I remember getting a couple of G's, as could get from Twisted Carmine, and I'm sure I remember it H once. You know, it's already noon. I'm not going to try to hook up my laptop to look up last year's, but yeah, I think it went all the way up to I, at least in the hat slot, if I recall correctly. Ryan, Living Garden was good for essence level D and above. I think Exceptionals defaulted to D as well. That's something to take note of as well. There's no more common, valuable, exceptional. We basically, for most areas, the common slot just deleted it. It's gone. In some ways, it was relevant stuff, but obviously it had to, you know, it's called common. It had to be worse than the valuable and the exceptional. And it's kind of a letdown. The first few golems you sent out kind of didn't come back with anything all that exciting. So just kind of got rid of that, flatten the drop table, moved the valuable into the exceptional. Some of that stuff maybe it doesn't show up quite as often, or it's a slightly lower quantity, but just kind of merged everything together. That Ikuri essences would be a welcome alternative to petals as a scarf reward. I said with enough petals, you can start getting the essences coming in. Petal in the scarf is disappointing. You'd like to see an Ikuri. Interesting. 60 Linearia is a nice reward from a scarf. I might be getting into some of the polarizing spot. Strike box seems like a good scarf item, not as major as a rib, says Terry. School, I'll go against the crowd and say more petals, less essence. Uh-oh, this might be split. Maybe it's good to kind of have a nice variety in there then. Some notes here too. The time sure does fly. I'm even curious, you know, what we're doing right now. It's crossed my mind. I don't know if it's a good idea. I'm interested even what players would think of it. Just kind of impromptu, kind of soundboarding, even in the afternoon or something. Just kind of popping on the channel and just kind of opening up a few golems and just kind of, you know, if we're ever sitting here like, I'd love to kind of run this by just a few players just to kind of see, you know, a random sample. Do they kind of think the same thing we're thinking? Yes, no, kind of food for thought type stuff. Dallas asking the important questions. Have we done the meadow yet? We can do the meadow just to have that as a discussion point. Some herbs showing up. Essences in the hat slot here. And the last part of the Living Garden complex. Some more petals. Ooh, we got an eye from the hat slot. That might go to show, right? Like even my eye gravitated toward the eye essence. Maybe there needs to be a chance of eye essence in the scarf slot. Fully loaded to the windmill. You know what? That's important to make sure there's something just doesn't make any sense whatsoever. So we will send one out to the meadow. Right? It's the type of thing you might not give it any thought, and then something silly might be there. So you might point out, hold on, you didn't think that through. What are you doing? And even the harbor. The harbor is a tough one because there's just nothing. There's no resources there. Tempted to put a do not ask again here. Now that's a feature though. My feature detector's going off and code freeze where it can't add features. All right, Meadow, the burning questions are there, and as you can guess, Super Brie is pretty well the only thing you get from the hat and the scarf. Some cheese to help you get going there. Roughly the amount of gold a novice would earn in 25 hunts is coming back. So actually, that's probably a little better than that. You know, if you're just started out the game, that's probably pretty good gold for you and a good way to get some Super Brie going. Windmill! Woo! If you're working on a King's Crown for Captain Croissant, even as a high-level player, that's kind of tempting. If you're a Crown Hunter, now it's some effort to go get that scarf, so you might just want to go hunt at the Windmill instead, but that's a pretty good little stash of cheese. 300 grilled cheese. Wow, says Ryan. Is it enough to make you think, at least, about the Windmill? You know, is it enough to make you pause and go like, well, probably not, but, you know, that's overkill 300. Well, it's roughly, again, kind of without that perspective of how difficult it is to get a scarf. If you spent the hunts you took to go get a scarf and you went to the Windmill, you'd probably end up with at least a couple hundred grilled cheese. It's not that hard to get, right? So that's why it looks like a big number. It's interesting. It's an interesting example of how sometimes something on paper seems fine, but then when you pop it up, either it looks a little disappointing or it looks like, whoa, that looks even better than it is. Not to be a complete sidetrack here, an expression, I don't know if I coined this or not, but I'll often say it when we're workshopping different creative ideas, is you aim to have something, you have to be a Star Trek fan here for this but something that humans love and Vulcans hate is how I phrase it, where when you look at it through the lens of logic, it's like, yeah, that's about right. But when you look through it through an emotional lens, like, wow, really? That's good. So that might be a good example of that. Just kind of when you get it all at once, we naturally have this cognitive dissonance. Like we forget about all the effort we put into getting the scarf and we just see the end result of it. And you get to experience it all at once. It's a very emotional response. Whereas if you sit down and you kind of crunch the numbers, like, no, that's about right. That's not very much better than the Windmill. It's kind of my Vulcans hate it, humans love it phrase. Give the Meadow Scarf like 1,000 Super Brie. I think that would be straight up bonkers broken schoolwork in the chat. Yeah, that might just mean unlimited Super Brie for the rest of the game's duration. That may have some consequences. Matt, you silvered Captain Croissant several years back and all those newer mountain mice. Great work. Deborah, if a person wants supplies to many areas, the crates in Clawshot City are pretty nice. That's not a bad way to go about either. Good use of your fool's gold. I wonder what was the rationale behind the gold numbers in the earlier areas. So, again, we kind of think, okay, if you spent 25 hunts in that area, how much gold would you earn? And that's kind of how much a golem comes back with. That said, mileage may vary, and we kind of tune it because sometimes it just looks very underwhelming. It's like, all right, you can give that a little bit of a boost. Maybe you spent 25 hunts in the laboratory or mausoleum instead of the meadow because it just looks ridiculous when it's a small amount. I'm out of cinnamon. Maybe we'll just park our keister here. At the boss. Ryan the Gold looks bad in the meadow. I think you're looking at it through the lens of a very high-level player, though. If you just started the game, that's a lot of gold. When you're catching mice that are just worth like 12 gold at a time, all of a sudden 1,200 just seems like an absolute fortune. Claw Shot, what would the scarf item be there? That's okay. Yeah, let's send one there. That's a good one. Claw Shot City. So tell you what, let's send out one all on its own, not dressed up for the winter. Let's send out another one with just a hat. And Claw Shot City. Let's send one out with a hat and a scarf. That's interesting, actually. That number looks like it increments before the golem returns. I'm actually going to jot that down. That might be a bug. Let's check that out. Norm, are you watching right now? Norm or Giorgio, do you want to jot down? I think that number might increment when you send the golem out rather than when it comes back, which means you can make that number very big for minimal effort. I actually can't really cancel the golem. Never mind. Yeah, technically, okay, it's just a matter of perspective. All right, let's claim this stuff here. So, just an ordinary golem, not dressed up. Hey, some cactus charms, fool's gold. Failed to catch a myth weaver. Come on. Prospector's charms. I don't quite remember what was here last year. Here's one with a hat. Ooh, got a sheriff badge charm. Those are awfully fancy. Nice to have. A little bit more fool's gold coming back. And fully loaded with all the ketchup and relish. We got a couple rare map dust as well. There's a lot of mapping going on in the world of Clawshot City. I got 2 rare map dust from that golem. That's pretty good. I'll take that. That's because the Meadow is a bad area in terms of reward. Yeah, I mean, you just started the game, right? It all makes sense through the lens of, remember too, when you start the game, you can only send a golem to an area that you meet the title requirement for, and you have the map piece. You have to unlock the location. So when you keep all that in mind, if the only area, that's it, I think these areas have the requirement of recruit. So you could send it to a town. So really, there's next to no reason to ever send it to the Meadow. But for the sake of completionism, it's there. It's there for science. Norm was half listening, debugging something with Giorgio now. Can you repeat? Did Giorgio or Norm, if you're listening, but the rest was missed. I don't think it's an issue, actually. It's a matter of perspective. So when you send out a golem, I'm just live debugging here. All right, when you send out a golem, you'll notice, hey, I've sent 3 to Clawshot City. Now, if I send this one out, okay, and then I go to send out another one, this now says 4. So this counts where you sent golems, not where they've returned. Hunters in the chat, what do you think? There's no way to cancel a golem, so it's not like I could send it, cancel it, send it, cancel it, keep getting my parts back, and make this number just infinitely large. But it is technically a count of how many times you've sent out a golem, not how many times you've claimed a golem. I feel like it makes more sense. Okay, like you got to actually have the golem come back, but I don't know. Nid says it's always been sent. All right, if that's how it was last year, good for me. Diamond saying, shouldn't there be some more crates in the Clawshot area? I think we're going to stick to just crates of that like area and sort of lore titles, sort of, you know, up to and including that area. It'd just be kind of weird if you could be in Clawshot City and like getting things for the table of contents of Folklore Forest. It's a bit, just a bit of an odd progression. All right, food for thought. And hey, it's a good opportunity. We can see what hunters think. Should it stay the same way it was last year? Count how many you've sent out. John likes the scent counter. Ryan, so it wasn't a bug, but it's a feature. It's how, well, no, it makes sense. I think it's just kind of an interpretation. If there's a way where you could cancel a golem and get your parts back, this wouldn't work, right? Because then you could, that wouldn't be accurate anymore. Imagine you're sending out 3 golems to watch each of the Queso Canyon geyser areas. You want to see which ones you've already done. There we go. Nid has found a very good use case for it. If you're trying to send a golem to every area, then you don't have to wait for it to come back to just scan and see like, yep, every area has a 1. Or if you're keeping tabs on that and you don't want to double up and send, you know, I've only wanted to send 2 golems there, not 3. This interface won't trick you. All right, I agree. And hey, we don't have to do any work to change it. That's a tiebreaker, even if there was a tie. And it would need a refactor, so no, his feature detector is going off. He knows there's code freeze going on. Code freeze. We'll have to change it to commit code. You need another dev to turn the key now. You're not allowed to even decide on your own. You need another developer to agree with you. Yep, that has to go in. Nid, excellent live, pushing it now. That's a Franco guarantee TM, aka what we like to call just joking. Or just a bold-faced lie. Dallas, I agree with Dave, but can cope. No, I think Nid, who's in chat there, who's Giorgio, has a good point. It's actually more useful if it counts where you've sent it out. So, hey, if you didn't want to send more than so many golems somewhere, the UI doesn't trick you into sending more than you want to. Can we see the adventure? That's actually, I think that's a pretty good thing to share. Even, I don't know if anyone took note here, but the Advent calendar and the Snowball Showdown are going to look a little bit different this year. Just as a very world's smallest heads up, technically when it goes live on Monday, the Advent calendar, it's going to look like it did last year. And then when the Great Winter Hunt goes live, that's where this new look was done as part of the Great Winter Hunt project. So it'll kind of change the look once the event starts. But yes, take a look at the adventure. Get some pecan pecorino, make a golem. build a golem, claim a golem, find some cinnamon, go use the workshop to, go use each one of those droids at least once to experience the ability to make any golem part you want. And as I think some people already guessed on the map, there's a big shield over that ice fortress on the map, and you got to smash it down to go capture the boss. Fully loaded Whiskerwood's Rift Golem. All right. Hey, where did I send this one? Was it another Clawshot City adventure? It was. Whiskerwood's Rift. All right. Fully loaded Whiskerwood's Rift. I think there's been some interest there. The old Taunting Charm cycle is awfully fun. Sure is. When your golem comes back with 3 Taunting Charms. Ryan wants to see the Snowball Showdown played. Okay, sounds good. School any gameplay to show what Festive Spirit actually does in different areas. So it is a little different, right? Rather than increasing your golem part collection rate, it kind of does everything to help you get golem parts. So, I think we kind of touched base on this last week, but there are 3 areas. There's Cinnamon Hill, Golem Workshop, Ice Fortress. And as you might be able to guess, you collect cinnamon, compressed cinnamon from Cinnamon Hill. The Festive Spirit makes mice drop more cinnamon, so it speeds up how fast you can collect your cinnamon. You take that cinnamon to the workshop to power up droids who are utilizing some golem part forges to create a golem part of your choosing. You can make all 3 of them at the same time. You can make just the one you're short on. You can make 2 of them and have the other one turned off, but every one you turned on is consuming 1 cinnamon to fuel the droid. And in there, it'll speed up how fast your droids can make parts. So overall, you need less cinnamon to make those golem parts. And then at the Ice Fortress, it's going to help you do more damage to smash that shield a little bit quicker. And it also has little loot bonuses associated with it. So some other little fun surprises. But Ryan wanted to see a Snowball Showdown. I gotta make sure I don't click that advent calendar because I think I've claimed some doors. Are we doing a normal or a deluxe? One of each? Let's do one of each. How many snowballs? I have a lot of snowballs. Okay, I'm good. All right, what are we dealing with? What do we think we're dealing with here? The candle? No, it's not the candle. Can't be the wreath. Can't be the box. Scarf. It's the scarf. No, it's not. What are you? It's the candle upside down. This is the scarf. Wreath? It's got to be the wreath, right? It's got to be the wreath. Booyah. Where is this gift box hiding? Right here? Whoa, I already had a hit. I wasn't paying attention here. I'm clearly getting tired. All right. So you can see, hey, I got a reinforced ice shard for the candlestick down here. I should have looked at that before this popped up. Festive Ultimate Power Charm, 3 King's credits for the gift, and 3 Snowball Charms for the wreath. Let's do a deluxe Snowball Showdown. Of course, super brief for finishing the board. Shape rotation also gets Dave. Oh, yeah, it's the worst when they're all stuck together, eh? All right, what do we got here? There's going to be a hat on every board. This could be the candy cane. Is it the wreath touching something else? No. What is this? What is this? This is we just gotta just rapid fire now. Nothing can help us. What is happening? Just for the sake of posterity, we just gotta click that one. What are these? How have I not revealed anything yet? Hey, all right, everything's all crammed together. Oh, the hat on the edge, all right. And you do get a hat for finding the hat. The candy cane gave me 10 Festive Spirit. The scarf was hiding up there. All right, this has got to be the wreath. Process of eliminate. Look at just how crammed together. It's just the hat is so big, eh? 10 Festive Spirit, a magical holiday hat. 10 Festive Ultimate Lucky power charms, or no, festive ultimate power charms, excuse me. And the wreath is now 10 ultimate snowball charms. I think it was supers last year. It was a good suggestion last week during Feedback Friday. Yeah, let's just make those ultimates, and sure, why not? Terrence, lots of laughter in the chat. That was a hard board when they're all stuck together. The hat does that. I think it's the hat's the culprit. It's just huge. That is quite something. Why don't you get a scarf from the scarf? I feel like you missed something obvious there. That would be very, very broken. We do not want too many scarves to come in too quickly because they're pretty darn good. So the only way to get a scarf is by going through the event. That's it. And it's a different scarf. It's not the magical scarf, right? It's not imbued with holiday magic. It's just a plain old scarf. Edison, are there any chance the Blaster and Gatler become non-LE again? Like the Gingerbread House Surprise Trap? I don't think the Gingerbread House Surprise Trap was ever LE, was it? Am I missing some historical fact here? If so, that would be the one exception in all these years. No plans, at least in the immediate future, to change what limited edition means. It means it's not coming back. It's the worst when they're all stuck together. Shall we cover the trivia? Let's do it. What time is it? Yes, we should end here. It's almost an hour and a half. 2 very lengthy Feedback Fridays in a row. This week's trivia question is, which Great Winter Hunt mouse is working on blueprints? Kind of touched on this a little bit earlier when we were talking about some of the changes to what items are useful during the event, and that did not take long at all. Sean L. was first in the chat with the correct answer. Yes, it is indeed the Snow Golem Architect. I'll put that reward link in the chat as well for your clicking convenience. The mutated gray, says Matt. Honorable mention, Matt. I think I remember that mutated gray's got some blueprints. The Ice Sculptor. No, I don't think... Do they have blueprints? The Ice Sculptor may have some blueprints, actually. Let's check this out. This search box is not very useful. Am I forgetting the name of this? What was that mouse called? Alright, we're just gonna have to browse. You know, I better be careful actually because I have all the mice unlocked. Let's not go into spoiler territory. Maybe I already did. Let's hope not. Let's actually not look in that environment. Let's look in the live game. Hey, it's time to sound my horn. Nope, I already been on a hunt. Alright, event mice. It's nice if you don't see the boss till you capture it. I'll know it when I see it. Iceberg Sculptor. I was looking at the Ice Sculpture mouse. I don't know. Iceberg Sculptor. No blueprints. No blueprints to be seen. Just a very ice pick. A very sinister looking ice pick. Even that tree kind of looks like it's up to no good. I'm not so sure about that. I don't trust that tree. Matt, thanks for the 100 magic scars. That item doesn't even exist in the game yet, so that's a different level of impossibility. School, do you get a scarf for every boss caught? It seems like a pretty good theory if you ask me. Remember the time we couldn't say... Oh, yeah. Yeah, I guess last Friday's trivia question was the Christmas cracker trap, and for whatever reason, I think YouTube censors that. And actually, come to think of it, maybe I know why it would do that, but that seems like an overly sensitive swear filter. But lo and behold, I thought I had stumped everybody, but I think YouTube was just filtering out everybody, and until somebody finally said it with a typo, and then it came through. But what are we at here? We're over an hour and a half now, including even the Impress You song at the start here. So I think I'm gonna wrap things up. Any last pressing Golem location requests before we sign off? What do we want to do? We'll do 3 more Golems, and then we'll call it a day here. Was able to take down a few little notes here and there about a couple areas. Valor Rift. Okay, let's do Valor Rift again. It's the first one I saw. In fact, tell you what, let's upgrade our golems to level 10 for this last one. Saw Valor Rift. Boom, boom. Out you go. Next one I'm seeing here. Schoolwork. Does Festive Spirit boost the cinnamon collecting golem part making thing? Yeah, basically whatever kind of like little gameplay mechanic, little thing you do in each area, it makes it go a little bit quicker. And even there's kind of a list of different festive themed items, and it'll kind of add +1 to those. That said, not golem parts, because you don't really need that many golem parts to make a golem. And that we tried that, I was like, this is way too good, and we had to walk that back. So let's see, what's another area? Table of contents. Okay, huge grain of salt. We've already dramatically changed the table of contents, but that's the purpose of this exercise, is to see if you agree with the changes we've made. So it's kind of good. You're going to look at an old version of the table of contents, and if something stands out, well, that's good confirmation. Seconding the table of contents fully loaded. Table of contents, living garden. One more for the living garden. Dave purposely skipping the table of contents. No, I just loaded it up. I do my best to try to... Sometimes when I look, I look over here and I look back, I kind of lose my place in the chat, so I might miss a spot, but I try my best. If there's a reason why I don't want to do something, I'll try to say why I don't want to do it. Living garden, we did 2 living garden already. Tell you what, Crystal Library, sure. It's a good one, because that one's in a bit of an awkward spot. No, actually, we did change the rewards this year. Actually, yes, Crystal Library, I think is a pretty good one. Out we go. So we'll do 3 more. Then I'll call it a day. Please try to keep the conversation going. We'll try to keep our ear to the ground, whether it be different Facebook groups, fan page, Discord. And just, to have that kind of player sentiment and comments in the back of our mind while we're kind of tuning things just sort of helps give us a little bit of context, See if players agree with the, or think the same way we're thinking. So Valor Rift 2, I think next week we're going to kind of tune this up a little bit, tone down the elixir, better charms, try to make the identity of this a great place to get Rift charms. It's helpful if you're doing your prestige push. I don't think Champion's Fire is in the area loot slot right now, and I think, too, we have a note. We might sprinkle that in. No, actually, it's right there. There's 3 Champion Fire. We already did that. All right. So there's Valor Rift. Big, juicy jackpot of the charms. Very purposely, sigils and secrets are out of there because you have to earn those yourself. That said, hey, this Champion's Fire, the elixirs, even the charms will help you earn those faster. Where did we send the next one? Table of Contents. Yeah, I didn't even get any Nobel Prizes, but Nobel Prizes were removed. But they're technically still in this. This environment hasn't been updated. In fact, we haven't even made that change yet. It's in our notes, our to-do list for next week. But a great way, you can see a very big identity of the Table of Contents is to get curds. So no matter kind of what stage of the game you're at, yeah, you always need curds to make your various tiers of draft cheese. That said, it's a good example where the area loot slot is tuned towards somebody who's just kind of starting out the area. They're just starting the Table of Contents. The hat slot's tuned a little bit more to somebody who's almost done. Kind of, how much curd could you get in 25 hunts? Right now we have the Opus in the Scarf slot, which there is condensed creativity in there. I think maybe we're thinking about adding condensed creativity there as well. But technically, that could be some powerful charms. Or am I thinking of the manuscript as the condensed creativity in it? Do I have those 2 backwards? 2 book-themed items. Thinking on the fly here. Could be wrong. Maybe even increasing a little bit the chance of seeing condensed creativity show up in the hat slot. I'm kind of playing around with this one quite a bit still. We haven't seen Prickly Plains Quintera Quarry Golem. I could sit here all day because it's just great feedback here. And the Crystal Library. Whoo! That scarf will set you up with some fusion fondue. Look out, M400. Someone will be coming for you. But very similar from last year. It's not the most exciting, but part of the current identity of the Crystal Library is it is a decent way to get orbs. Now, I don't think a lot of people really want orbs, but that is what it is for this area, at least until it gets a bit of an overhaul. So orbs, this is one of the I think this might be the only golem drop table that has orbs on it, actually. This is, I think, the only place you can send a golem and it comes back with orbs. There you go, Norman. Magnum Opus has either condensed creativity or magic essence. All right. Wouldn't mind a rainbow spore now and then. I think aren't rainbow spore charms inside the opus as a potential, so they kind of are. 50 fusion fondue. Wow, that looks great. That's the goal with the scarf. I mean, it's hard for every area, but it shouldn't just be absolutely bonkers ridiculous, but enough to make you go like, yeah, wow, yeah, I want that. Cool. If I'm interested in that area, it's just the scarf won't let you down. That's the goal. But obviously, everyone has a different level of what they feel of wow factor. Some people need an entire year worth of loot to feel a wow, and other people are, can kind of go like, yeah, for how long it took me to get that scarf, yeah, that is pretty darn good. I saw one other one too. What did I already forget what I saw that sounded good? I've lost it. Norman, rainbow spores are guaranteed in the opus. Quantity varies. Okay. Fort Rock's fully loaded. All right, let's do it. It just hits different when you see it in the game. When you look at things in a spreadsheet, they just it's something about seeing the item thumbnail and everything pop up and the little icons and everything. So actually I might write down. I'm gonna do another pass on this because we did just update Fort Rocks a little bit. Meteorite pieces are a little more plentiful than they used to be. So I just want to see if this needs to come up a little bit. If I can find it in my notes here. All right, Fort Rocks. Can never spell meteorite piece. Holy. The Prickly Plains and Cantera Quarry, that was the one. Yes, actually, we did tune those quite a bit, so that's actually a good one just to get some impressions of. Can we get a peek of gameplay of the Ice Fortress? Alrighty. I want to leave some to the imagination here when it starts, but sometimes it's also useful just to see if anything just doesn't make any sense, right? Sometimes somebody will have a very poignant comment that go like, oh, we did not think of that, and we have time to act on it because it's not released yet. But yeah, basically, hey, you got to break down the shield, so boom. 35 out of 36 health. I'm going to turn on another one. Boom, 33 out of 36. I'm going to turn on another one. 30 out of 36 health. Okay. I'm feeling festive. For the next hunt. 26 out of 36. All right. Not bad. All right, Cantera Quarry, though. Let's go check that out real quick. All right, and then we will call it a day, I swear, because I'm getting hungry here, and otherwise I'll sit here all day just getting feedback. All right, what are we doing? Prickly Plains. Let's start that with all the toppings. Cantera Quarry. And let's do Queso River. We're just, a nice little trilogy. Ring. We can gauge. All right. So Prickly Plains. I'll certainly help you out. So as you'd expect, a lot of leaves, a lot of things to help you hunt at the plains, chase down Inferna. Ryan, is it just me or is the cinnamon going up when you fire rather than down? You don't use cinnamon to break down that shield. You fire hailstones, but maybe you could find some cinnamon. The math is mathing. Yes, please sit here all day. It's crossed my mind it's actually a pretty useful exercise, even just maybe in the middle of the week, just impromptu, just see if anyone's randomly around who wants to pop in and just soundboard and, just nothing too official capacity. Just see, are we thinking the same way as a random selection of hunters are who happen to be around right now? Seems like it could be beneficial. All right, so now seeing that, there should be not too many big surprises here, but I didn't know. I did get some Wild Tonic. I was expecting to see more Wild Tonic in my hat slot, but hey, Magic Essence, so it's still things to kind of help you out. Notchore is sort of on that list of things that you use to buy or like build and upgrade in an area, so it's sort of on the list of things you can't get from a Golem, which leaves Cantera Quarry in an awfully awkward spot, but things to kind of supplement your hunting otherwise. Help you make more Wildfire Cheese with Ember Stones. Wild Tonic as well. I don't think Wild Tonic is on any of the other Golem tables for other areas. Don't quote me on that, but kind of leaning into that being the identity. In fact, I was expecting to see a little bit more. I might want to send a second Golem here. Magic Essence, that's just useful no matter where you are in this region. Let's send out one more, actually. That seemed like it wasn't the best Golem. Okay, that's a little bit. There we go. I got some Tonic in the hat. Tonic showed up a few more times. You know, your mileage might vary, and I'm wondering if maybe that needs to come up just a little bit. I'm even going to jot that down because I'm a little disappointed by that Wild Tonic. No Wild Tonic and Queso Geyser is interesting. And let me double check the Geyser one more time. I don't think it's there. Again, this is all from memory. It's a lot to memorize. It's in the hat slot, I think. I don't know if it's in the area loot slot, though. And come to think of it, I think they all might have a chance for it in the hat slot, but it's a little bit more likely to show up in Cantera Quarry. So kind of its identity. Even if you don't do a lot of hunting in the Quarry, a Golem there will kind of help you in other spots to kind of help feed that cycle and that loop. Let's do one more. Is this the one that I sent to... No. Who did I send to the Geyser? Let's do one more Scarf to the Geyser. Got the Ultimate Dragonbane Charms again. Maybe there's other things on that table, but I didn't get it. Cool. Magic Nest Dust is nice to see as well. But yeah, no Wild Tonic again. Okay, but I might double check that. Okay, and last, where did we send this third one? Queso River. So as you'd expect, it's raining queso, because if you send one to Queso River, what else did you expect to get? But as well, hey, a chance at an unstable Ember gadget. I don't think that's in the area loot slot, if I recall correctly, though. I think there's just a little glimpse of it in the hat, and that's about it. Actually, that's one thing I'm going to double check. I feel like something we kind of meant to do with this refresh of the Golems is some of the older areas or just existing areas add adventure requirements. I got to double check. I don't know if you need to finish the Inferno adventure to be able to buy the trap, but that would be good to add if a Golem's going to come back with a gadget. This is the absolute worst place. I got my notes all the way on my second monitor on the right-hand side. I can already feel my neckline. Why are you typing while looking like 90 degrees to your right? Don't do that. Yeah, Jonathan, Wild Tonic seems to be like ought to be in all Queso Canyon areas. And maybe a trickle of it, but it's also nice if they all have their own identity so that they don't all become just sort of the same thing, right? It's all kind of the regional stuff. Yeah, it might be good food for thought. I think there's a trickle in it. Maybe we can kind of split the difference and make it just, if you send it to the Quarry, you're just likely to see it. It's just the most reliable, but it doesn't have to be the only way. Feroma Golem, not Rift. Remember when I said I was going to leave 20 minutes ago? Do we remember? I remember. Can't type Feroma, actually. All right. Go one to the dojo. This is actually one I think we played around with quite a bit, so it's probably good to get sentiment as well. What am I doing, though? I'm losing my mind here. I got to take a break. We got to stop. Pinky swear this is the last one. Pinky swear. I can't even use the interface anymore. I'm losing my mind. And Pinnacle Chamber, fully loaded. So this one's tough. And actually, Training Grounds is kind of a weird one, too. Okay, let's get these golems back. My horn is ready. Somebody take me on a hunt. I believe in you. Somebody can take me on a hunt. Okay, so the dojo. Some Maki is flowing. Nothing all that exciting, but if you're interested in the dojo, that'll help you out. Meditation room. So again, we're trying to create a scenario here where if you start on the lower floor, you end up with enough you get a lot more lower tier supplies to help you kind of get to the top. So if you go ahead and use all that, you come out ahead rather than sending them all to a higher floor. But this actually looks a little bit off to me. Not very many people sent their golems to Feroma, though, so yeah, it's way down on the list. Training Grounds was second last. Town and Digby was where the fewest golems were sent. And the Pinnacle Chamber. $15 Maki and a Scarf. Well, Maki's very comparable to Super Brie, so you can smash it for Magic Essence. So that's pretty well, in terms of Super Brie, in that slot, it maxes out at 15. It's the same as the Meadow. I think you get 15 Super Brie if you use a Scarf on the Meadow, so it's probably not the best place to use your Scarf, but it's just pretty well the only relevant item there. You may as well not go to the dojo. Yeah, I think that needs to come up just a little bit, actually. I think that's off. I'm failing to use a computer because the screen is all the way on the other side. This is not ergonomic, FYI. The dojo isn't on this list. What has happened? All right, well, we missed the dojo. I will jot that down. Training Grounds as well was a little bit weird. What did that look like? I mean, that said, I don't think people really set their golems here, so. And I'd venture a guess people will still not send their golems here either. Yeah, so it's just tokens. So I'm trying to find a little bit of a variety depending on what you're looking for, but yeah, these are all in a weird spot because they're so tightly connected. All right, but we'll end things off there. I gotta cease here. I think we've set a record for 2 hours being almost the longest Feedback Friday ever. If you're watching this recorded, bravo for making it through the whole thing. This is a little bit of a lengthy video to come back and watch later, I would imagine. Not too many people will make it to the end. Nevertheless, thank you for hanging out, everybody, for giving your early impressions, feedback, sentiments. I was able to jot down some notes here, added it to kind of our list of playtesting notes. Next week, that's the big focus, is just now, okay, pencils down, code freeze, just keep playing it, tuning it. And that's something that's easy to adjust, you know, just changing numbers here and there. Looking to dial that all in. Please keep the conversation going as much as you can. We'll kind of be, you know, keeping an eye out all over the place to see what comments, feedback, suggestions pop up, and just food for thought while we're trying to make just literally hundreds and hundreds of small decisions here, right? It's very difficult to have perspective, and we don't have so much time to kind of analyze each thing. So if nothing else, just seeing what people, what players speak about the most is like, okay, let's spend a little bit more time on that one because there's a lot of areas. And like I said, the Training Grounds, we probably don't need to spend an entire afternoon just making sure it's absolutely perfect because odds are not a lot of people are going to send it to the Training Grounds. So if nothing else, it's good feedback to see what players are excited about. So again, thanks for hanging out for this long. For those of you, I think I see a few names that were here right at the start. Please go stretch your legs and enjoy the rest of your afternoon. I'm going to take a little lunch break, then I'm eager to get back here and start playing the Winter Hunt again. So again, look forward to the Advent calendar coming Monday. It'll make its appearance and you'll be able to open up the first door on Monday or on December 1st. Tuesday, that Hunter's Horn update's coming. You saw it the whole time we were playing the Winter Hunt here. A new look of the horn, new animation. You can see the header artwork just a little bit behind the horn now. It looks pretty slick. Smelly Sodium Base is getting an update as well on Tuesday. It'll have +1 salt level in the sand crypts as long as you capture a mouse and you're using a type of salt charm. And finally, Wednesday, those Relic Hunter promotions will come to an end. So that's just everything in the premium shop. The 20 for 20 rare map dust, all those kind of limited time purchases, all that sort of thing, they're going to come to an end Wednesday morning. So, if you're looking to take advantage of that, please do so before Wednesday, maybe Tuesday, kind of, if you're thinking about doing it. Otherwise, you have to wait to see if it returns next year. We'll see, which it may or may not. Who knows? All right, again, thanks for joining me, everybody. Have a fantastic weekend. It'll probably be Jacob next week. I've done 2 in a row. We swapped just so I could get some feedback on Golem rewards so we can actually act on it next week. So it'll probably be Jacob, and I think he might even be working on some Lunar New Year's stuff, but who knows? We'll see what he decides to work on Friday. Have a fantastic weekend, and I'll see you all next time.
You're a trap. Don't seem to mind it. You attract me. I'm a mouse, you're a cat. I don't seem to mind it. Soft and furry. Oh, and just when I think I'm safe, snap. Turns out I'm never safe, snap. Just when you think you're safe, snap. I come back. You don't seem to mind it, but I'm a fool. Broke my back. You don't seem to mind it, 'cause you're so cool. And just when I think I'm safe, snap. Turns out I'm never safe, snap. Ooh. And just when you think you're safe, snap. Turns out I'm never safe, snap. Ooh. Just when I think I'm safe. Oh. Turns out I'm never safe. Oh, just when you think you're safe. It turns out I'm never safe. Turns out I'm never safe.